Here we are at Breakthrough Counseling Services. We're in session 6, and we're going to do a review of our previous sessions, but we have some new stuff today to empower you, to help you in your journey with the Anxiety Depression Resolution Program. So today we have a car as one of my props. As you know, I use a lot of props. And we also have an egg timer, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it around. And we're going to prove something here. We're going to show something here to help you. Okay, I'm going to put it to the side here on my surfboard. Always have my surfboard with me. And so today we're going to start with a simple lesson. What a car can teach us about ourselves and about our anxiety and depression. What we want to do is focus on not just ourselves, but we also have to look at the outer world, what I call OPs, other people, and how do they influence us. So I would question you right away, what type of driver are you? Are you a frenzy driver, fanatic? Are you a reaction? Are you a hot reactor when you drive? Do you react to people on the road, or do you respond? Because that's going to make a big difference on your journey and how you get to your destination. The same thing, the same analogy applies to our lives outside of our vehicles. So how you respond on the road, how you obey the rules of the road, and how you drive is in definite relation to your life outside of a vehicle. It's the same thing. The only difference is now this is your vehicle. And this is the engine here. So here we want to learn something, that with a car, you always have choices. That's what we want to learn up front. And what we want to take with us is that with people, many of you have experienced other people on the road who irritate you and aggravate you, or maybe you do it to them as well. And a lot of it is because they're not following the rules of the road. Well, there are rules in life, and sometimes people break them, and there are consequences for that. But what I want you to know is that when you drive your car, you're in control, that you are responsible. It's your license, your permit, and no one else takes that responsibility. Now, many of you do not like front seat drivers or back seat drivers, unless you're like me or some men or women that they want to be in control of driving no matter what, especially when it comes to directions. We won't ask for help. So we can get lost and lost and lost, and we don't ask for help. Well, eventually we're going to ask for help because we can't find our way. And that's happened to me many times, where I've asked my wife, can you check the GPS? So that's our own stubbornness and rules that we break. But only if you ask people to help you to drive your car. Is that okay? Otherwise, you are responsible. And that's how it is in our mental health, with our emotional health. We are responsible for our mental, emotional health. The minute we start saying that other people made me do this, other people are responsible, then you lose all control. The control is given to them. The same thing on the road. When you allow rage drivers, people who have road rage, or they're erratic drivers, they're very aggressive, very assertive drivers, they put you in danger. And you've got to respond the right way, or you could be in an accident or worse. The one thing I want you to know with the car and your personal life, we're going to attach the two, is you always have choices, no matter what. So let's look at the choices we have with a car. With a car, you can park, you can put it in neutral, you can turn, you can reverse, and you can drive. Those are the choices that you have. So if someone is being a jerk to you, stupid, acting, like a bozo, then you have those 4 choices. If you park it and begin to argue with them, or you start to get into a competition where you swerve towards them or they swerve towards you, now there's going to be danger. There could be a potential threat. That's going to up the ante in your nervous system. And many of you have felt it driving. It's one of the problems in our society, is people are triggering their nervous system over really trivial stuff. You got in front of someone, they didn't like the way you drove in front of them, driving too fast, too slow. Whatever the issue is, it's your nervous system that's getting triggered. And people get triggered very easily on the roads. Well, what's the difference in life? It's the same thing. In domestic situations, at home, it could be your neighbors, it could be at work. People trigger you too easily. And then what happens is our nervous system is there. Remember I told you, nervous system is either your best friend or your enemy, depending on how you respond and react. So for domestic situations, just like your car, you could be overreacting for something very trivial. And you go to my scale that I've been teaching you here, the 1, 5, 10. If you're making everything a 10, then that's an emergency. And your nervous system is going to respond. It's going to do what you ask it to do. You're telling the nervous system there's a threat and there's an emergency where there really isn't. Those are perceived threats and emergencies on the road or at home. So I want you to know that you have those options. Tell yourself when you're dealing with OPs, other people, that you have a choice. You can park if you want to have a conversation. If it gets too hot, you need to leave. You can keep it in neutral. You can be neutral with people. Agree to disagree. You don't have to always prove your point. And we'll talk about in a second here. You don't always have to create urgency where there's no emergency. You can reverse. You can try it again, or you can reverse and get out of there and maybe think about it. You can go, leave. You don't have to come back at all. Or you can turn and try a new direction, a different path with people. So same thing in the car, same thing in your lives. This includes marriages, relationships, roommates, co-workers, bosses. It doesn't matter. I call them OPs, other people. Now, what if there's no people? What if it has nothing to do with people? What if it's just yourself? The way you think about yourself, your perception of yourself, the way you think things are, you imagine the way things are, you make yourself a victim, you blame yourself for things. Now you're in a situation where you have to decide, should you allow yourself to stay there in that moment? Can you do something else? Do you have choices? Well, I'm here to tell you, you always have choices. And I'm going to give you something here today that will be life-changing. So here it is. I want you to know that it is the most critical part of your healing and restoration of your nervous system. If you can restore your nervous system, your anxiety symptoms will subside and your depression will subside, because you're empowering yourself with choices. You're doing things that are good for your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health. So the most critical part of that is making choices and empowering yourself to get better. Or if you don't have a consistent or a chronic anxiety depression issue, I call it a condition, it's not a disorder, then this is for you. Okay, there are people who can function normally. You might be listening to me and saying, well, this doesn't apply. This is too easy. I don't really need this. This doesn't apply to me. That's okay. You're functioning very well. But let me tell you, there is a lot of people who are suffering. And they're suffering in silence. They're not telling their family members. They're not telling coworkers. And these people are heroes. They get up every day and they function. They get up and they wear the mask. And they don't know how much people don't know how much they're suffering. So this is for you. And it's also for you if you ever, God forbid, have a setback. If you ever get into a situation where your nervous system is hijacked. That's what's happening to people who have anxiety and depression conditions. Their nervous systems have been hijacked and their brains have been hijacked. I call it a freeze, or I call it the brakes. Now going back to that car, remember, if you put the brakes on, you have no choices. If you don't start the car and begin the process of putting it in drive, you're stuck. You're frozen. You have no choices. You can always put yourself in drive. What are you waiting for? See, that's the thing. If you're bragging about your new car and you say, well, I have a new car, it's beautiful, but you never put it in drive, it's just a car. The purpose of it is to get you to point A to point B. And that's what we want. with your condition is to always get you from point A to point B, get out of park, get out of frozen, and once you are unfrozen, you're moving. And that's a good thing, to have you moving. Now, what does choices do for us? As a mental health counselor, I've freed a lot of people in a very short time. What choices does, it gives you confidence. It gives you security. And when you feel those two, your nervous system relaxes. It relaxes. And when it relaxes, you have spontaneity. And what is spontaneity? Spontaneity is freedom. You have the freedom to go, to do what you like to do. You don't have to worry about your choice. You don't have to sit there and hit yourself over the head with a hammer. Did I make the right choice? Should I not? What do you think? You ask everybody else. But really, spontaneity is about you being free to go, and you know you're making the right decision. You're free to go and be you. That's the key here. But when you're frozen, you're trapped. When you have brain freeze and your nervous system freeze, you're literally trapped, and many of you know what I'm talking about. It is a horrible feeling, and you feel like you can't make choices. But with these tools, you do, just like this car tool. It's an amazing concept when you really apply it to your lives. Now, I'm going to give you some simple math. I know most of us hate math, but this one is good. I'm going to be a good math teacher here. Simple math. So we're going to take the word freeze, that's the brain freeze, okay, not the one you get from ice cream, but from anxiety and depression. You're going to minus the ZE. So freeze is F-R-E-E-Z-E. Minus ZE, okay, equals free. Then we're going to add a plus. We're going to add D-O-M. And what does that spell? Freedom. So freeze minus ZE equals free, and then you add D-O-M, and you have freedom. You have the freedom to choose. You have the freedom to be confident, secure, and spontaneous. It's a beautiful thing. And when we get people to do that, then that empowers them, and they start to, little by little, make choices. Now let's go to my egg timer here. Why do we have this here? You see it running. Bring it a little closer. You might be able to see it running there. Why do we have this as a prop to help you? Because once you get triggered, once your nervous system is triggered, you can't rush it back to normalcy. So it has to restore. So I need you to be patient. When someone triggers you in anger, frustration, when you feel like everyone else is in control, the situation is in control, your roommate is in control, your husband, your wife are in control, everyone seems to be controlling you, and you don't feel like you have control of anything. That's when you get into symptoms. So be patient when you get triggered. Somebody may have triggered you at the post office, at the grocery store, like I said, in the car, anywhere in public, anywhere in your home, in your neighborhood. People trigger us. Once we get triggered now, if you get into that sympathetic nervous system, remember we said that in other videos, that means that you are in a state of vigilance. You're in a state of fight and flight. Once you do that, chemicals are going to be coming, blood is going to be flowing to your muscles, you're going to be symptomatic. Your brain's going to race, okay? And then eventually it's going to race, but it's going to shut off. You're going to get brain freeze, okay? And you're going to go into survival mode. You're going to go into reptilian brain. In other words, you're going to be like an alligator. You cross an alligator with your feet in your presence. That alligator is not going to sit there and process your feelings. It's not going to think about how you feel. It's going to react. It's going to bite you. It's going to grab your arm or your leg. That's called a reptilian brain. Their brains are the size of a pea. You don't want to be in that state. So if you get triggered by people, OPs, you get triggered by your situations, you're going to be like an alligator. Or you'll be like a hungry tiger or lion that wants their prey. You're not an animal. We're humans and we can process. So what you want to do is, yes, you want to use my scale, the 1, 5, 10, and ask yourself, is this person creating a threat to me or an emergency? And all you do is you use the 3 simple numbers. Number 1 is a non-emergency. You can chill, okay? You can have a chill pill, a non-alcoholic beverage. You can have a drink. Just take a chill pill. Go to the sauna, go work out, do something relaxing. It's a 1. It's a non-emergency. All words, watch this. This is going to be tough for some of you. All words are non-emergency. They're just words. If the words turn into a threat, now that brings the numbers up, 2, 3, 4. You pay attention, okay? A 5 means you pay attention. It could be a possible threat. But how much choice do you have to bring it back to a non-emergency, to bring it back to a 1? That's up to you. Survey the situation, perceive it. Now, if that threat turns into a physical threat, the person shows up and really is going to take action, then it's an emergency. It's a 10. So we have a headache, a migraine, and a stroke. Which one would you call 911 for? So keep the headaches and the strokes within balance, okay? Migraines are uncomfortable, and so are headaches, but they're not emergencies. So keep your life between what I was telling you in the other videos, between an ebb and flow, the ebb and flow of life. So that's going to be the key, is now allowing people to trigger your nervous system. Some of you are born with a very sensitive nervous system. Others, you have resiliency, maybe through life experience, the way you were raised, some of your trials and tribulations, you developed resiliency. Good, that's a good thing. But other people have a very sensitive nervous system, and their nervous system is going to respond within a millisecond. Okay? It is built in to respond that way, but for real emergencies. For other people, they're very sensitive and they'll respond to non-trivial things. So we need to care a little bit more for yourself if you have that sensitive nervous system. Okay, so remember, the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system were built in you mechanisms so that you can get things done, get the job done, perform. And it's going to be like this, like a wave. Okay, that's how they both work. When you get into the sympathetic nervous system only, you are in fight-flight. Chemicals are released. The nervous system is going to react. You're going to go into a state of vigilance. If you don't recover from that, then you are going to be in what's called hypervigilance. That is going to interfere with your daily routine, with your daily living. It's going to keep you alert, and your brain is not going to go into spontaneity. You're not going to be able to relax yourself because your brain has been hijacked and it thinks that there's danger lurking. Remember my lighthouses that we talked about. If the lighthouse turns on, it's there 24 hours a day, surveying. But if it turns on, now that part of the brain I told you about, the amygdala, is going to hijack the rest of your nervous system. You have these friends in your brain and in your body that can get hijacked when you are triggered and you stay in that trigger. Some people's jobs require them to be always on alert, always performing, like a police officer, fireman, things like that, air traffic controller. They're one of the most stressful jobs. And stockbrokers, things like that. It's things where you have to always perform, be aware, be vigilant, paying attention always. You can't turn off. That is not good for the nervous system. It is not good for our immune system, and that's where things get depressed. When our immune system gets depressed, and everything follows. The brain, the mind, everything follows the depression. When it's the other way, anxiety, where you feel out of control, or there's fear, now that's a hyper state. That's not depression, it's hyper. It's hypervigilance. And so those are the two that we have to pay attention to. All right, so we talked a little bit about the limbic system, our autonomic nervous system. It's all there to help us, but when it gets hijacked, it's not our friend sometimes. It becomes our enemy, and it's very hard to function. All right, now we're going to go to some of the areas. Let's talk about the amygdala, the adrenals, the pancreas, glucose, the highs and lows, the brain, those are the ones that get stuck. If it's the body below the neck, that's the flight part. If it's the brain, it gets frozen. So remember those two. They're working sometimes in harmony and sometimes not. When you feel detached, remember when I showed you the duck? That was a funny one. The duck separated the head and the body. We got to work on bringing that together so the mind and the body work together. We don't want to stay in brain freeze. All right, so here we are. I'm going to go back to this guy again. You see how long it takes? So this is how we need to be with our nervous system. I told you just before, once you get triggered, you need to be patient for things to get back to the parasympathetic nervous system. You probably are in the parasympathetic nervous system right now listening to me, unless there's some kind of alert or threat or something you need to do and you're thinking about it. Let your body restore. Let your mind restore. Go in the whirlpool, sauna, go for a walk, talk to a friend, pray, do something, some breathing, progressive relaxation, do some yard work, anything to get you away from the situation and be patient. If you can't do those things, if you cannot get around something, just you yourself remain calm and just chill. Okay, just sit down and chill. I don't want you to worry about what's happening to your body. I've already explained to you that the nervous system has been stimulated, and that stimulation brings a lot of symptoms. Okay, moving on. Now we're going to talk about a review of what we've learned so far. A quick review here. We want to be in the ebb and flow of life. When we get into this position here, let me demonstrate for you quickly here. These are extremes. This is not how we want to live our lives. Okay? The highs and the lows, the highs and the lows. And sometimes what happens is we get stuck here, right here. We get stuck on the lows. For other people, we get stuck here with too much stimulation, too much aggravation, too much frustration, anger. This is not good for your nervous system. Sometimes we get here where we're too low. Listen, these things will hijack you in a heartbeat. So we don't want to be there. What we do want is the waves. We do want, watch this, we want the ebb and flow of life. We want our nervous system to be like this. And by using the tools, by being aware of how you react and how you respond, it's going to make a big difference on whether you are high, low, or if you're doing the ebb and flow of life. Okay? Everything is a learning experience. Don't let people get you to think that you're out of control if something happens. You know, if a situation comes up and you have to make a decision, or someone puts pressure on you, or someone is giving you a hard time, or someone's not communicating, you know, whatever. When a situation comes up, don't look at it as all or nothing. Avoid extremes with your thinking. And always try to kind of look at the gray area and not everything black and white. Because that's what triggers people when they're perfectionists, when they're all or nothing. Well, I can't do it, so I quit. Ebb and flow. The ebb and flow, it's functioning. That means you're functioning. When you're in extremes, that's where you expect all or nothing. And so you either have too high expectations or too low. And as humans, we can't function like that. When it's too high or too low, like I told you earlier, you get hijacked. So I'm going to keep working on this for you. Every session, we just keep coming back and giving you more tools. Share this with other friends and colleagues, and share it with your family, anyone who needs this. Tell them to come back each time. I'll keep building the channel. So that's it for today. This is Dr. DeValier from Breakthrough Counseling Services. trying to help you in your journey here. You are going to get confident. You're going to have your security back, and you will be spontaneous. You will be. Just be patient with yourself. You've been through a lot if you have this anxiety condition and depression, but the turnaround is amazing, and you're going to be seeing the sun come out of the clouds after today. You're not obligated to respond or react to anyone. You're not obligated to change someone, to control someone. That's not your obligation. Your obligation is to take care of yourself. Your obligation is to love people and respect people and love and respect yourself. Other than that, the only thing we can control is ourselves, what we say and what we do. On my next session, we'll be doing the boundaries. So come on back to learn that and how the OPs in our lives, we need to put that in check big time. So Dr. Navalle from Breakthrough Counseling Services, we will see you in our next session 7, and stay tuned.